Kellyanne Conway's voice cuts through the air like shattered glass, her pitch rising, words tumbling over one another in a heated scream. The cameras catch every second of it, her finger jabbing, her eyes burning with fury. Gasps ripple through the studio audience, the kind that turn into whispers, then into an uneasy silence. The anchors shift in their seats, blinking, their polished smiles suddenly erased. For a moment, it feels like the air itself has turned heavy, like everyone knows they've just crossed into dangerous, unpredictable territory. The studio fell silent. America held its breath. And then, in perfect cinematic contrast, the camera pans to Jasmine Crockett. She isn't rattled. She isn't shaken. She sits back, almost smiling, her posture steady, her expression calm, like a storm had been expected all along, and she came prepared with sunshine in her pocket. Her composure in this moment is more cutting than any shout. Where Conway is red-faced and trembling, Jasmine radiates an almost unnerving calm. The contrast is electric, impossible to ignore. Social media will later light up with screenshots, side by side. Kellyanne's rage, Jasmine's serene stare. But in this moment, inside that studio, no one is laughing. The anchors, usually quick to interject, hesitate. Feels like the balance of power has shifted in real time. The loudest voice in the room suddenly seems the weakest. And the audience feels it. That creeping awareness that something bigger is about to unfold. That the story doesn't end here, with a scream. No. This is only the opening note of a symphony that's about to turn thunderous. Jasmine finally leans forward ever so slightly. Not to interrupt, not to shout, but to let her silence stretch long enough that it becomes unbearable for her opponent. Her eyes lock onto Conway with a steadiness that says more than words ever could. You've already lost. But she doesn't speak yet. Not here, not now. Because timing is everything. The anchors shuffle their papers nervously. The cameras zoom in. Viewers at home lean closer to their screens. Every second of quiet feels like the cliff's edge before a breathtaking drop. And then the narrator's voice cuts in. Calm but weighted with promise. No one expected what happened next. It wasn't just any broadcast. This was primetime live TV. The slot where millions tune in, where every slip becomes a headline, where every gesture can swing narratives overnight. The nation was already restless. Elections looming closer each day. Partisan battles sharpening into knives. Every debate, every soundbite was ammunition in a war for public opinion. And here, under the glare of stage lights, the clash between Kellyanne Conway and Jasmine Crockett was more than two women trading words. It was the embodiment of a deeper fight. Rage against reason, spin against truth, arrogance against dignity. Kellyanne came loaded for battle. From the moment the cameras rolled, her tone was sharp, her interruptions relentless. She was no stranger to media combat. She'd made a career of turning interviews into ambushes. Tonight, her strategy was clear. Overwhelm, dominate, humiliate. To rattle Jasmine Crockett on live television would be a political trophy, a clip to replay endlessly across cable networks and social feeds, proof that the establishment's old guard could still bring the fire. But the atmosphere in the studio betrayed just how precarious this gamble was. Every viewer could sense the weight of the moment. America wasn't just watching a spat. It was watching a mirror. On one side, Kellyanne, red-faced, embodying the anger and chaos that had gripped the political right. On the other, Jasmine, a young black congresswoman, poised and unshaken, symbolizing a new generation unwilling to bow to intimidation. The tension wasn't confined to the stage. Across the country, living rooms, bars, and break rooms were locked into the drama. For immigrants chasing the American dream, for communities long told to stay quiet, for young voters hungry for authenticity, Jasmine's composure felt personal. If she faltered, it would confirm the narrative that loudness wins, that bullying works. But if she held steady, she could flip the script, showing that dignity could still triumph over rage. The anchors tried to play referees, but they were swept up in the spectacle. Kellyanne's voice rose, her attacks sharpened, questioning Jasmine's intelligence, dismissing her experience, attempting to paint her as unworthy of the platform she'd earned. Each jab was meant not just to wound, but to delegitimize. And yet, Jasmine's silence, her refusal to match fury with fury, became louder than any scream. The studio audience shifted uneasily, murmurs breaking through the quiet. Viewers online began to sense it too. The more Kellyanne barked, the smaller she seemed. This was no longer about one interview. It was about what America valued in its leaders. Were they drawn to fire and fury, or to reason and resolve? Did power belong to the loudest voice in the room, or the steadiest? Every second of the standoff felt like a referendum on those questions. By now, even the anchors knew they had lost control of the segment. Their glances at one another said it all. This is history in the making. Every producer behind the glass wall was already clipping footage, already imagining the headlines, already smelling the viral potential. And still Jasmine waited. Her moment hadn't come yet. But Kellyanne's fury was only beginning. To understand the firestorm that erupted in that studio, you have to understand the woman behind the fury. Kellyanne Conway didn't stumble into the spotlight. She engineered her rise with the precision of a strategist who knew how to weaponize words like others wielded swords. She was, after all, Donald Trump's spin queen, the architect of verbal gymnastics so infamous they became cultural punchlines. Who could forget her coining of alternative facts? It wasn't a gaffe. It was a glimpse into her entire philosophy. Bend reality until it favors your side, and say it with such confidence that people hesitate to question it. For years, Kellyanne thrived in the gladiatorial arena of politics as entertainment. She was combative, quick-witted, and unafraid to bulldoze interviewers who dared push back. Her reputation grew as the one who could survive hostile questions and emerge with a soundbite sharp enough to dominate the news cycle. In an era when cable news rewarded spectacle, Kellyanne became indispensable. Where others stumbled in the chaos, she orchestrated it, spinning outrage into momentum, turning scandal into theater. But beneath the polish of her verbal mastery lay a darker quality: arrogance. Kellyanne didn't just spar with opponents, she relished humiliating them. She thrived on the sneer, the eye roll, the dismissive laugh. Her opponents weren't just wrong, they were beneath her. That energy, once electrifying to her supporters, became corrosive over time. Every flash of contempt, every smug retort, reminded the country of an era many were desperate to move past. By the time she squared off with Jasmine Crockett, the shine had begun to fade. The public had seen this act too many times. The interruptions, the false equivalencies, the smug attempts to dominate. For years, Kellyanne's power came from her unpredictability. She thrived in chaos because she controlled it. But in the shifting tides of American politics, chaos was no longer a novelty. It was exhaustion. Voters weren't amused by her smirks anymore. They were tired. Tired of division, tired of rage masquerading as strategy, tired of a political class that confused shouting with leading. And yet, Kellyanne had no other mode. She was a creature of combat. Her instinct was always to escalate, to talk over, to drown out. Confronted with a poised opponent, she couldn't pivot to grace or humility. She only knew how to double down. In her mind, volume was victory, and derision was dominance. The irony is that Kellyanne Conway was once considered a trailblazer, the first woman to manage a winning presidential campaign. She had shattered a ceiling, only to reinforce the very machinery of cynicism that kept politics broken. To her admirers, she was clever, cutting, unstoppable. To her critics, she was toxic, manipulative, and corrosive to truth itself. To the rest of America, she was simply exhausting, a familiar face they associated with the turbulence of a divided decade. That was the baggage she carried into the studio the night she clashed with Jasmine Crockett. Her name still carried weight, her presence still commanded attention, but the audience's patience had thinned. People no longer gasped at her spin, they rolled their eyes. Her old tricks, reframing questions, deflecting blame, weaponizing sarcasm, had become predictable. What once felt like strategy now felt like noise. And Jasmine was the worst possible opponent for someone like Kellyanne. Young, sharp, unflappable, Jasmine represented everything Kellyanne couldn't easily dismiss. She wasn't a rookie stumbling into the lion's den. She was a rising figure with the composure of someone who had studied the playbook and prepared a counter-strategy. The old tactics Kellyanne had deployed for years, the sneering interruptions, the exaggerated indignation, wouldn't just fail against Jasmine. They would boomerang. The audience could feel it too. As Conway launched into her familiar routine of raised voice and rolling eyes, there was no thrill, no awe. Instead, there was unease, even discomfort. The gasps weren't admiration. They were fatigue, edged with embarrassment. Viewers across the country knew they'd seen this movie before. And they knew how it ended. Because the truth was simple. Kellyanne Conway's arsenal had always relied on control. She could disarm a flustered host, out-talk a weak opponent, spin chaos into advantage. But for the first time, she was up against someone who wouldn't take the bait. Jasmine's calm wasn't just composure. It was a mirror, forcing America to see Conway's antics stripped of their former glamour. What once looked like cleverness now looked like desperation. And desperation has a smell. It lingers, turns audiences away. That night, Kellyanne Conway thought she was setting a trap, but in reality, she was stepping into one. Her old weapons, the sneer, the sarcasm, the scream, wouldn't just lose their edge. They would expose her. Because this time, her usual weapons would backfire. To understand why Jasmine Crockett's composure that night landed like a thunderclap, you have to trace her journey. Not just the headlines, but the grit behind the rise. Jasmine didn't come from a family of privilege, political dynasties, or inherited platforms. She came from the soil of struggle, the kind of roots that teach you that nothing is guaranteed and everything must be earned. She grew up watching injustice not as an abstract debate on television, but as a daily reality that touched people she loved. That awareness became fuel, shaping a woman who would one day stand in the halls of Congress, unapologetic and unshaken. Her path wasn't smooth. It was marked by the long hours of study when others doubted her potential, the financial sacrifices that so many first-generation strivers know too well, the constant whisper that perhaps the system wasn't built for someone like her. But Jasmine was relentless. She didn't buy into ceilings, she broke them. When she chose law, she chose it not for prestige but for purpose. To fight for those who couldn't afford high-priced attorneys, to give voice to the voiceless, to shield communities too often left vulnerable. Courtroom after courtroom, case after case, she learned how to wield facts like armor and compassion like a sword. It was in those years of legal work that Jasmine's calm became her signature. While others raised their voices to intimidate, Jasmine lowered hers to clarify. While her opponents ranted, she reasoned. Her demeanor didn't just win arguments, it earned respect. Judges noticed, clients noticed, and eventually the public noticed. The poise that would later define her on national television was not a performance. It was muscle memory, built from years of standing steady in rooms where everything tilted against her. When Jasmine transitioned into politics, she carried that same energy. She wasn't interested in empty theatrics. She was interested in service. Every bill she pushed, every committee she sat on, every late-night negotiation she endured. Her record built not on self-promotion, but on substance. That distinction mattered. In an era where politics felt like a circus, Jasmine was a reminder that public service could still mean something. But it wasn't just her policies or her credentials that made her stand out. It was her ability to resonate. For countless women, immigrants, and marginalized communities, Jasmine represented proof. Proof that dignity could coexist with power, that authenticity could triumph over cynicism, that someone who looked like them, spoke like them, understood their lives, could rise into spaces designed to keep them out. And along the way, Jasmine had already given America viral moments of brilliance. The kind of exchanges where she dismantled opponents with nothing more than precision and poise. Clips of her correcting misinformation or holding her ground against condescension spread across social media like wildfire. Not because she shouted louder, but because she didn't need to. Her calm cut deeper than rage ever could. People leaned in, rewound, replayed. Not out of shock, but out of admiration. In her voice, they heard something rare in politics: credibility. That credibility became her shield. It also became her quiet weapon. By the time she sat across from Kellyanne Conway, Jasmine's reputation preceded her. Viewers knew she wasn't easily rattled. They had seen her face hostility without flinching, arrogance without bending, insults without reacting in kind. She had turned dismissive smirks into opportunities for education, hostile interruptions into masterclasses in restraint. And in that reputation lay her strength. Because while Kellyanne Conway thrived on chaos, Jasmine Crockett thrived on clarity. The more her opponent flailed, the calmer Jasmine became. The more noise filled the air, the sharper her words landed. Her power wasn't volume, it was precision. And in a media ecosystem addicted to outrage, that contrast was magnetic. But Jasmine's story was never just about her. It was about the people she carried with her. The young women who saw her as a model, the working-class families who saw her as a voice, the communities long silenced who saw her as proof that silence was no longer the only option. She stood not as a singular politician, but as the embodiment of a movement that believed in dignity over division, fact over fiction, calm over chaos. So when the cameras captured her that night, sitting steady, eyes clear, lips curved in the faintest smile, viewers knew they were witnessing more than a reaction. They were witnessing the weight of a journey that had prepared her for exactly this moment. And it was that very calm, honed in courtrooms and tested in Congress, born of struggle and sharpened by service, that would turn the storm against Conway. The tension didn't just rise, it detonated. Kellyanne Conway, sensing that her usual tactics weren't landing, grew louder with each passing second. Her voice cracked with the strain, her words tumbling into one another, a flurry of accusations that painted a picture of desperation more than dominance. She hurled charges of dishonesty, of weakness, of incompetence. Wild claims meant to rattle, meant to destabilize. Her face flushed, her hands slicing the air with sharp, frantic gestures. It was theater on the edge of collapse. And yet, across from her, Jasmine Crockett sat in sharp relief, unmoving, poised, and utterly unbothered. Each time Conway spat out a venomous line, Crockett answered not with a counterpunch, but with restraint. A single raised eyebrow, a measured word, sometimes not even that. For every storm unleashed, she offered a stillness that became more powerful than any rebuttal. The cameras caught everything. Viewers at home could see it, the contrast, the imbalance. Kellyanne Conway's fury was meant to intimidate, to dominate the stage through sheer volume. But as she screamed, it became clear that her opponent wasn't shrinking. She was strengthening. Jasmine's silence, her steady composure, turned every scream into an echo of Conway's unraveling. The anchors shifted in their chairs. The studio audience sat wide-eyed, caught between disbelief and fascination. Social media, already buzzing, ignited with clips of the exchange. Hashtags began to trend in real time. One side of the split screen showed rage, veins visible in Conway's neck as her voice wavered from fury to near hysteria. On the other, Crockett sat like a mirror of control, every bit of her posture saying, "This is what dignity looks like under fire." Conway's strategy, once so effective in overwhelming opponents, now betrayed her. The louder she grew, the more she revealed the brittleness beneath her bravado. Every accusation thrown landed not on Crockett, but on Conway herself, bouncing back as proof of her own unraveling. Her voice, once a weapon, became a liability. And Jasmine, she didn't need to match fire with fire. Her short, measured responses were deliberate scalpel cuts against Conway's sledgehammer swings. A calm, "That isn't true." A patient, "The facts don't support that." Even a pause, silent, deliberate, unyielding, landed heavier than a shouted retort ever could. Narrator. Every scream from Conway only made Crockett's silence louder. It was as though the nation collectively leaned in, realizing they were watching not just a debate, but a turning point. This wasn't politics as usual. It was a clash of philosophies, a test of whether chaos could still drown out clarity in America's fragile political stage. And for once, clarity was winning. But Kellyanne wasn't finished. Her fury peaked, her voice fraying under its own intensity. She leaned forward, stabbing the table with her hand for emphasis, her accusations spilling out faster, sharper, more personal. She was daring Crockett to break, to lash out, to give her the satisfaction of an emotional slip. Instead, Jasmine did something unexpected. She shifted. Slowly, deliberately, she leaned forward. The move was subtle but seismic. It was the first sign of movement after so much stillness. And with it, the atmosphere in the studio changed. The anchors froze. The audience inhaled. The cameras zoomed ever so slightly. And the nation leaned with her. For what felt like an eternity, Jasmine Crockett had let the storm rage unchecked. She had absorbed the thunder, endured the lightning, allowed Kellyanne Conway's fury to fill every corner of the studio. And then, just as the air felt thick enough to break, Jasmine finally moved. She leaned in, her posture deliberate, her eyes steady, her voice low, clear and razor-sharp. "Kellyanne," she began, calm as if she were cross-examining in a courtroom, "you've spent the last 5 minutes throwing words like confetti, hoping something sticks. But here's the thing about confetti. It looks dramatic in the air, but it doesn't hold weight when it hits the ground." The words landed like a crack across the silence. The anchor blinked, unsure whether to interject or let history write itself. Conway, momentarily caught off guard, opened her mouth to fire back. But Jasmine continued, each sentence deliberate, each word landing with precision. "You claim I'm dishonest. Yet, unlike you, I took an oath to uphold the Constitution, not to serve as a spin artist for whoever pays the most. You built a career twisting facts into soundbites. I built mine defending people who couldn't afford anyone else. So when you shout at me about truth, understand this. Truth is not a slogan. Truth is the record. And the record isn't on your side." The studio audience gasped. One anchor shifted uncomfortably in his seat, as if realizing the scales had just tilted. On Twitter, the clip was already going viral. Within seconds, hashtags like hashtag Crockett Clapback and hashtag Truth versus Spin exploded into trending territory. Kellyanne tried to push back, her hands gesturing wildly. That's completely," she stammered, her polished confidence cracking. But Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Let's talk about chaos," Crockett continued, her voice even but cutting. "You've made a career out of it. Out of turning Americans against one another. Out of framing fear as policy. Out of treating lies as strategy. And yes, maybe it worked once. But look around you. People are tired. They're exhausted by the yelling, the manipulation, the circus. They want leaders who speak to their dignity, not their divisions." The anchor's mouth fell open slightly. Conway's face flushed, her rebuttals tripping over themselves. For the first time, she seemed smaller. Not the dominating presence she had cultivated for years, but a figure diminished by the clarity of Crockett's voice. Jasmine wasn't finished. Her sentences built slowly, deliberately, like steps climbing toward a summit. "You accuse me of weakness because I didn't scream back at you. But let me make something clear. Silence is not weakness, it's discipline. Restraint isn't cowardice, it's control. And when the dust settles, when the yelling fades, what people remember isn't who shouted the loudest, but who spoke the truth." The room hung on every syllable. Even those in the control booth whispered to each other, their hands hovering over dials, reluctant to cut away. Conway tried again to interject, but the timing was gone. Every attempt to claw back momentum sounded shrill in comparison to Crockett's deliberate cadence. She raised her voice, but it only echoed. Crockett's calm dismantled her rage piece by piece. "You say I don't represent America," Jasmine pressed on. "But let's be honest. What you fear is that I do. A black woman, a lawyer, a daughter of working people, sitting across from you and refusing to bend to your intimidation. That's the America you don't want to see. But it's the America that's rising anyway." The audience broke into murmurs. A few even clapped before quickly silencing themselves, as if they had forgotten they were in a live studio setting. Online, clips of the line spread like wildfire. Viewers typed furiously, "She destroyed her. This is how you handle bullies. Give Jasmine the gavel already." Conway faltered, her voice now strained. You're twisting this into some kind of sob story," she spat, but it was clear her rhythm was gone. The fury that once seemed commanding now came across as flailing. Jasmine leaned in just slightly further, her voice dropping a note lower, intimate yet piercing. "No, Kellyanne. I'm not telling a sob story. I'm telling the truth. And the truth doesn't need to scream to be heard." It was the crescendo, a moment so precise, so cutting, that the studio went utterly silent. The anchor stared into the camera, unable to summon words. Even Conway froze, her next line caught in her throat, her face tightening as if she knew, deep down, that the fight was already lost. On social media, that line, "The truth doesn't need to scream to be heard," was clipped, memed, repeated. It was instantly iconic. And then, the final strike. Crockett straightened her posture, delivering one last line with surgical calm. Sometimes the sharpest gavel isn't the loudest voice. It's the truth itself. The studio went quiet. Completely quiet. No anchors moving papers. No audience whispering, no Conway shouting. Just silence. A silence heavy with realization, with finality, with the unshakable sense that something permanent had just shifted. Kellyanne Conway blinked, her lips parting as if to respond, but no words came. For the first time in years, the spin queen had no spin. Dignity had triumphed over chaos. And in that silence, Jasmine Crockett had not just won the debate. She had left her mark on history. The silence in the studio lasted only a few seconds, but its echo thundered far beyond the broadcast. Within minutes, clips of Jasmine Crockett's counterattack had hit Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. What had started as another shouting match in America's endless political cycle had transformed into something else entirely. A cultural moment. The hashtags told the story. #Com versus chaos exploded first, capturing the stark contrast between Conway's frantic energy and Crockett's surgical composure. Then came #Crockett mic drop, propelled by a viral TikTok edit that froze Crockett's final line. "The truth doesn't need to scream to be heard," and replayed it in slow motion with cinematic music swelling underneath. Within hours, millions had seen it. By nightfall, those words were printed on t-shirts, tweeted by celebrities, and captioned under Instagram photos. Memes spread like wildfire. One image showed Crockett seated calmly at the debate desk while a digitally added hurricane swirled around Conway. Another featured the caption, "When the lawyer brings receipts to a spin class." On TikTok, creators stitched Conway's stammering attempts at a rebuttal with laughing reaction shots, or paired Crockett's calm retorts with clips of athletes landing knockout blows. Even late-night television wasted no time. That very evening, one host quipped, "Kellyanne Conway thought she was in a debate, but Jasmine Crockett thought she was in court. Guess who won?" Another joked, "Conway was playing checkers, Crockett was reading her the Constitution." The audience roared. But the frenzy wasn't just about humor, it was about meaning. Political commentators lined up across the spectrum, each trying to frame the moment to their advantage. On progressive networks, panelists praised Crockett's restraint as a model of modern leadership. One anchor called it, "the embodiment of dignity in the face of chaos." Another remarked, "This wasn't just a clapback, it was a case study in emotional intelligence." Crockett didn't just win, she redefined how you win. Conservative pundits, meanwhile, scrambled to defend Conway. Some dismissed the clip as liberal media spin, others claimed Crockett was smug or condescending. But even within those circles, cracks showed. A few admitted, albeit begrudgingly, that Conway had lost control of the exchange. One commentator sighed on air, "Look, I may not agree with Crockett's politics, but she stayed calm, she stayed on message, and she made Kellyanne look, well, rattled. That's a loss." Then came the op-eds. Major newspapers ran columns with headlines like, "The power of calm," "Crockett's debate moment breaks the internet," and "Spin meets its match." Some writers hailed it as a cultural turning point, A generation tired of outrage finally rewarding composure. Others warned it was just another viral blip, destined to be forgotten in the churn of America's media cycle. But for the public, the moment felt larger. In a country exhausted by years of shouting, the sight of someone refusing to be baited, someone answering chaos with clarity, felt revolutionary. It wasn't just about politics. Teachers shared clips with their students as lessons on communication. Parents posted about showing it to their kids as an example of handling bullies. Even business leaders praised Crockett's executive presence. Meanwhile, Conway herself became the subject of uncomfortable headlines. "Has Kellyanne lost her edge?" one article asked. Another bluntly declared, "The spin queen spun out." Allies publicly defended her, but privately, leaks hinted at unease. Some questioned whether her combative style, once an asset, had finally crossed the threshold into self-parody. And still the memes kept coming, each one a tiny blade, cutting away at Conway's image while elevating Crockett into an unlikely cultural icon. On Instagram, a viral post read, "America doesn't need more screamers. It needs more listeners." The caption tagged Crockett's handle. By the end of the week, Crockett was booked on multiple primetime shows, invited to podcasts, and even offered a keynote speaking slot at a major leadership summit. Her moment of composure had transformed her from a respected congresswoman into a household name. But as the frenzy peaked, a deeper question lingered, one that couldn't be answered by hashtags, memes, or late-night jokes. Was this just entertainment, or was it a shift in what Americans actually valued in their leaders? The narrator's voice hovered on that line, almost whispering. But the real impact went beyond memes. It was about who America wanted to be. In the days that followed, Jasmine Crockett refused to bask in the frenzy. Where others saw an opportunity for endless victory laps, she instead reframed the moment with a quiet dignity that mirrored the way she had handled Conway on live television. "This was never about me versus Kellyanne," she said in an interview, her voice measured and steady. "It's about what kind of leaders we want to be. It's about whether we can choose truth over spin, composure over chaos, and dignity over rage." Her words cut through the noise. For all the hashtags, memes, and viral edits, Crockett reminded America that the clash wasn't about a single moment of drama. It was about something deeper. At a time when political culture seemed addicted to spectacle, she dared to suggest that restraint could be more powerful than rage. The contrast could not have been sharper. Conway, once lauded as the spin queen, now seemed diminished, her fury replayed in endless loops as a cautionary tale. Her unraveling became emblematic of a politics that thrived on shouting, interruptions, and manipulation. Crockett's calm, on the other hand, stood as a countersymbol, proof that clarity and restraint could break through where noise failed. The moral was unmistakable. True strength isn't in the volume of one's voice, but in the steadiness of one's presence. Crockett had not won because she shouted louder, but because she refused to be dragged down into the chaos. Her victory was not in overpowering her opponent, but in standing taller than the storm around her. This lesson resonated far beyond partisan lines. Teachers described Crockett's performance as a masterclass in composure. Parents wrote about showing the clip to their children as a model for handling bullies and conflict. Faith leaders pointed to it as an example of turning away wrath with gentleness. In workplaces, managers circulated the clip in leadership trainings, praising her ability to command a room without raising her voice. The emotional crescendo lay in what this moment said about America itself. A democracy, after all, is not built on who can scream the loudest or bend the truth most skillfully. It is built on resilience, on the ability to listen, on the courage to hold steady even when provoked. Crockett's calm became a metaphor for what many Americans longed for, a politics less about rage and more about responsibility. In her silence, people heard something rare in modern public life: respect for truth, respect for process, respect for democracy itself. The lesson was simple but profound. Dignity endures. Rage burns itself out. In the long run, chaos collapses under its own weight, while calm becomes the foundation upon which progress is built. For Kellyanne Conway, the night would be remembered as a stumble, a moment where the performance of chaos finally met its match. For Jasmine Crockett, it was remembered as a triumph not of ego, but of example. She had shown that one does not need to match anger with anger to win, that sometimes the most devastating response is the one spoken softly, backed by unshakable truth. And for America, the clash left behind a moral that stretched beyond politics. In a world where noise is constant and tempers run hot, real power lies not in out-yelling your opponent, but in outlasting them with grace. The narrator's voice drew the curtain on the story, not with fanfare, but with conviction. Strength is not the loudest voice in the room. Strength is the calm that steadies it. In the end, America must decide which it values more: chaos or the composure that keeps its democracy alive. Kellyanne Conway may have screamed, but in the end, that isn't what America remembers. The shouting, the chaos, the fury, it all faded into background noise. What stood out, what carried across living rooms, classrooms, and social feeds, was Jasmine Crockett's calm reply. One voice frayed. The other stood unshaken. One tried to dominate. The other chose dignity. And that's the lesson that will endure. In politics, in media, even in our own lives, we are faced with a choice every day: to meet rage with rage or to rise above it with composure. Jasmine Crockett reminded us that real leadership isn't about the decibels you command, but the respect you earn. Her calm didn't just win a moment, it made a statement. A statement that dignity beats rage, that truth beats chaos, and that calm in the end always goes viral. If you felt the same spark watching this clash unfold, now it's your turn to carry it forward. Share this story. Leave your thoughts in the comments because your voice matters too. And if you believe America deserves more calm, more truth, and more dignity in its discourse, hit that subscribe button and stand with us. Because together, we can build a culture where strength isn't measured by how loudly we shout, but by how powerfully we stand.